This is the Department of Energy's Savannah River Site. It may be the most dangerous place in the United States. Massive amounts of weapons-grade nuclear materials are stored here. The Savannah River Site houses some of the world's nuclear waste, including massive amounts of weapons-grade plutonium. However, recent security breaches and embarrassment have caused some to question whether or not this site is capable of housing such dangerous substances. Aiken, South Carolina is a charming southern town known for its fine homes and thoroughbred horses. It's hard to imagine that just 18 miles away is one of the most dangerous sites on Earth. The Savannah River Site was once the center of Cold War H-bomb production. Today, SRS is the de facto storage site for tens of millions of gallons of highly radioactive waste and enough weapons-grade plutonium to destroy the world several times over. SRS is a security nightmare. A terrorist that successfully breaches SRS's 310 square mile facility could be rewarded with the holy grail of Al-Qaeda, a chance at securing weapons-grade material, and short of that, unleashing a terrorist act that would dwarf 9/11 in lasting damage by attacking SRS facilities and unleashing a radioactive Armageddon. This is the K Materials Storage Facility. From around the world, U.S. surplus nuclear warhead pits have been returning to SRS by the ton. The exact amount stored is classified, but is believed to be more than 30 tons. That is enough to make hundreds of nuclear weapons. This storage facility is located uncomfortably close to a major public highway cutting through the Savannah River Site. When an unused cooling tower for the old reactor the weapons-grade plutonium is stored was imploded, the state highway was shut down. While security for such hazardous materials should be a top priority weapons facility, the Department of Energy has trusted the guarding of SRS not to the professional nuclear guards of the U.S. Army and Marines, but to a private security company owned by a foreign corporation. The contractor Wackenhut Security is owned by G4S Security. G4S is a firm with a long history of dubious performance. The most recent scandal involved not providing enough guards for the London Olympics, forcing the British government to call in the army at the last minute. But before that, G4S had the contract for airport security on 9/11 at U.S. airports, where Al-Qaeda hijackers successfully boarded planes. That performance prompted the complete federal takeover of U.S. aviation security. The curious relationship between National Nuclear Security Administration and Wackenhut has many critics wondering why DOE and NNSA doesn't federalize its own force of guards. The Department of Energy and its predecessor agency, the Atomic Energy Commission, has one of the worst security records in the federal government. Massive amounts of unaccounted plutonium, scandals involving 2 top security officials, and major security breaches at every major DOE facility. In July, an 83-year-old nun and her companions were able to successfully infiltrate one of the Department of Energy's most secure sites at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Sister Megan Rice was able to get extremely close to massive amounts of bomb-grade uranium, making the near-comic security lapse yet another dangerous embarrassment.
I am Megan from Nevada.
Sister Megan Rice and 2 others did what no one should be able to do. As part of an anti-nuclear protest, they brazenly broke into one of the country's highest security facilities, the site of protests in the past. The target, the country's largest stockpile of uranium for nuclear bombs in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. In the middle of the night, using bolt cutters, the 3 breached the perimeter fence, and then 3 more fences and motion detectors, reaching the building holding all that uranium, splashing blood on it and raising 2 banners before guards, who have the authority to shoot to kill, finally arrested the 3.
You have to be a little concerned when it's, an octogenarian nun who helps you understand your nuclear weaknesses and security.
Already the government admits there were security execution deficiencies, but the government insists the intruders were not even close to getting into the building. Still, an extremely embarrassing lapse in these tense times. David Curley, ABC News, Washington.
These invaders should have been detained or even shot before ever getting close to the facility. So why didn't this happen? Supposedly this issue is under investigation by the Department of Energy, but it begs the question of who is in charge of protecting these dangerous substances, especially the plutonium at the Savannah River Site. If this nun one day has the idea to reproduce the experience, she would certainly have an easier entry at the Savannah River Site. Wackenhut Security, the same foreign-owned, privately contracted firm, is in charge of guarding SRS, as well as the Y-12 plant at Oak Ridge, where the nun and her elderly cohorts got close to massive amounts of bomb-grade uranium. Wackenhut's parent company, G4S, was responsible for the security of the State Department in Afghanistan when it was discovered its employees were involved in wild drinking bouts and bizarre hazing rituals.
They look like photos of a fraternity party gone bad, some too graphic to even show. But these are not drunken frat boys. They're reportedly private security contractors for the State Department, guarding the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. That, according to a private watchdog group, the Project on Government Oversight. A 10-page report sent to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton claims that some supervisors and guards frequently engaged in lewd and deviant behavior, hazing and humiliation of subordinates. That's based on information provided by more than a dozen security guards. The private company involved is Armor Group North America, a subsidiary of Wackenhut, both private security contractors. The State Department has slapped Armor Group with 9 security deficiencies at the Kabul embassy over the past 2 years, but in July renewed the company's contract for another year. Jim Miklashevsky, NBC News, the Pentagon.
If only this were an isolated incident. There have been many examples of Wackenhut security officials letting down their guard and failing to do their job well. When D.C. Bureau reporters traversed the public highway through SRS site on a quiet Sunday morning, they found numerous unguarded, open gates in contrast to the dramatic security show put on for them during their escorted tour. This surveillance video shows a Wackenhut guard who, after falling asleep at the wheel, causes a massive car accident. Wackenhut guards have been involved in security at other dangerous facilities.
You're inside one of the nation's largest nuclear facilities. These are some of the security officers responsible for protecting it against a terrorist attack. An attack that could kill or injure tens of thousands, including people here in our area. But instead of being alert and prepared for anything, the officers are asleep. Unaware, a fellow guard is videotaping these disturbing images shot at different times of the day. This incident isn't the only time workers have been caught sleeping on the job. A few weeks ago, a federal inspector here at Indian Point in Westchester found a security guard fast asleep at his post. The security officers all work for Wackenhut, a firm which provides security for all of those plants. Now, after we showed the video to Exelon, a top executive wanted us to be the first to know our investigation has already brought change. So in essence, you're saying Wackenhut, as a contract at Peach Bottom, is done.
It's in the process of transitioning to termination.
Wackenhut is not just involved with the DOE and the NNSA, but with all branches of government, including Homeland Security. However, they haven't exactly gotten stellar marks in these areas either.
I've never seen anything like the way Wackenhut ran Homeland Security. Homeland Security, I think, on any other contract would have been considered the most prestigious contract you could have next to the White House. I've worked with other security companies, and any time there's been an issue of officers sleeping, inappropriate behavior, falsifying documentations, I've never seen 24 hours go past without someone from corporate headquarters coming down to investigate. And I've never seen a situation in which people will repeatedly do the same thing and report to duty the next day. I've never seen it. I've never seen officers falsify documentation, fill out their timesheet for the month in a guard mount, and supervisors never say anything. I've never seen officers leave a site with a weapon in D.C., not being an SPO, and not being reprimanded for it. I've never seen an armory left wide open. I've never seen an armory in a project manager's office. I've never seen, I worked at the Department of Interior, and we've had several incidents with suspicious powder. I've never seen it handled that way. I've never seen anyone take an envelope and not know what the substance was and walk down the hall, walk past the secretary's office, look at it, call people over to witness what they have, take it outside, let a few other people see it, discuss it with people, and then call FPS services to investigate. I've never seen anything run the way Wagon Hut ran Homeland Security. I've never seen any company disrespect a government contract to that proportion.
Randy Garver is the Vice President and General Manager of Wackenhut at Savannah River Site and is sure of his team's efficiency.
We're well trained to protect the special nuclear material as well as everything else on this site. We really have different levels, but I mean, from you look at these, when you look at from our, because everybody is a security police officer, to include our law enforcement personnel. Mm-hmm. So everyone has the basic training, if you will, to maneuver.
While Garver seems confident in his team's ability to protect SRS, there are many issues with the geography of the site. Mike Pilgrim's job has always been to imagine the worst-case scenarios and then find ways to prevent them. As an expert who designed protection for presidents, military bases, airports, and nuclear sites like Savannah River, he believes, and other experts agree, that there is no more sensitive target for terrorism than the Savannah River Site.
The attack, a successful attack with an RPG on one of these tankers, would cause widespread fear. It would basically kill the commercial nuclear industry in the country, and it would show that the terrorists are capable of committing what we would call low-level terrorist events. So all you really got to do is have an event.
Aside from a history of security mistakes, the site itself poses many difficulties for the NNSA and the Wackenhut security team. The 310 square mile facility has many vulnerable entry areas and sits along 17 miles of Savannah River shoreline. The river is open to any boater, and while patrolled by what is jokingly called Wackenhut's Navy, DC Bureau reporters, with the help of Savannah River Keeper, shown just how close anyone could get to the site. At one point along the river, there are access points that lead directly to K materials, where the plutonium is being stored. The entire site itself is located in a forested area, with a major public highway running straight through the site. It has many entrances, 129 miles of paved roads, 63 miles of rail track, and 36 cemeteries throughout. Larger than Washington, D.C. and its surrounding suburbs, this site's vulnerability can be summed up in one word: scale. Not only is the site extremely large, but DOE and NNSA budget has not allowed for the increase in manpower necessary considering how much weapons-grade material has been sent to the site. The amount of manpower available at a given time is something DOE or Wackenhut would not discuss. The total guard force is estimated between 600 to 800. However, this is not every day. The actual guard force available is much smaller, maybe 200 on a given day. The site's security boasts about their marksmanship and helicopter capabilities.
Probably the biggest surprise for me coming here and leaving the Army is the amount of ammunition and the shooting standards. Because one of the things that I would say, that our protective force personnel shoot better because the Department of Energy has higher standards for marksmanship than the military does.
They do fail to mention that they pay their employees more if they are certified with expert-level marksmanship. Many employees do not possess the skills. What is clear to security experts is that there is simply not enough protection to withstand a suicide terrorist mission. If a terrorist cell sent in two teams, one to attack the tank farms for the purpose of causing a major radiation release to divert protection services, and a separate team in by the way of Savannah River to attack the K materials facility, any security force would be hard-pressed to respond. If the attacks came from the air, planes going into the old K reactor, a plutonium flash could occur with a major fire that could contaminate the East Coast in a plume that could reach Washington, D.C., according to DOE's own studies. For local residents, a plane crashing into one of the dozens of liquid waste tanks could set off a radiological event that would make future monitoring of the remaining tanks for hydrogen buildup impossible. While private planes are unable to fly over the site, commercial jets have no such restrictions, leaving the site extremely vulnerable to terrorist attacks. DOE and NNSA has spent billions on a long list of failed projects, yet has not found the budget to adequately secure its own nuclear facilities.
And, when they make up their mind that this is why we're going to do it, all thinking stops. Well,
and they're resistant to any kind of other folks coming in saying, no, why don't you try this, why don't you try that? No, no, no. And this thing has had such momentum. It's going on. There's so much been sunk costs into this. It's impossible to change that. I mean, they're relying largely on the buffer zone to protect for safeguard and security.
Garver is not bothered by the potential danger.
It always worries. I mean, just like if we're a commercial airline flying over the site. But you know, here's the piece that we really work on hard. Is there's a couple things that one is the buildings are extremely hard. The protective strategies that we have in place are really hard. And in the event that something like that would happen, would be extremely nasty, obviously, and there would be some casualties. But the protection of the material would not be in question. And then the other part of that would be, you know, our forces would be able to respond and isolate that fairly quickly.
DOE reports obtained by DC Bureau contradict Garver. The old K reactor where plutonium is stored is incapable of withstanding a 9/11 style airliner attack. Another major issue is high security personnel turnover at SRS. With an already smaller than needed security force, constant turnover leaves the site more vulnerable to mistakes and possible attacks.
Teams and the quick response teams at Savannah River and DOE in general used to always be among the top qualifiers. But now I'm paying a guard force, and the turnover rate is, you're looking at 50 to 70% in some of these cases. It will keep the upper level people, 3 or 4 of them, the lieutenants and the captains, but the other guys continually train and get trained to go off and make more money.
However, when Randy Garver was asked how long members of his team would stay with the company, he responded with, "Forever. They love it here."
You haven't hired anybody in a couple of years?
Yes, sir.
So is it budgetary constraints, or you just have to...
No, it's a matter of becoming more efficient because, you know, one of the things that we looked at is the fact that like any organization, we have modernized weapons, modernized equipment, modernized communications, that at the same time, after 9/11, they added additional posts throughout the site, just like anything. So we had some growth, and you know, and one of the things that we looked at is to go back and really look hard about, okay, what's really the mission essential pieces of this. So, but the budget was not the issue. The issue was really to become more efficient and more lean, but at the same time not impact at all on security.
Garver also believes that no one else could do the job that Wackenhut does, even though many nuclear sites are guarded by the Army and not private security companies.
I say from an operational perspective, though, I would say that I'm not. I would never say that an Army unit couldn't do this as well as we do it for a period of time, but I would say that there's no Army unit that could do this as well as we do it over the sustained period of time.
Even after a contract dispute in March, Garver remains confident that no other security company stood a chance in overriding Wackenhut's contract.
We were very confident that nobody could do it as well as we do it.
Regardless of personnel problems at the site, many local people are simply ignorant of the dangers at the Savannah River Site, as well as the nuclear materials kept there.
Literally, if you want a dirty bomb, you can go downriver of Savannah and probably collect enough, because as you know, it's already leached into the water table, it's leached into the soil. You can probably get enough that would cause a major event, no matter where you set it off, just setting.
By just going the sediment of the Savannah River.
Exactly.
Southern culture and patriotism combine to insulate SRS from serious public scrutiny. Only recently have the DOE appointed Citizen Advisory Board begun to speak critically of the massive amount of radioactive material being brought to SRS, which the board said was turning the site into the nation's de facto nuclear waste dump.
And you have to understand, these are sites that were sort of immersed in cultures of deference to authority, where you never spoke out. You kept your head down and did your job, and that was it.
DOE and SRS benefit from local residents not wanting to speak out about the problems on the site. Many people feel that because the scientists working at Savannah River Site are willing to have their families live here, it must be a safe site.
Again, the most charming people that are so educated and come with beautiful families across the globe. And to me, that again is more reassuring. Why would they choose to come here, even if it's for 3 to 5 years, and leave everything they know if they don't feel safe here?
Well, what you have is this, there's this culture that sort of becomes an echo chamber where everybody believes whatever everybody believes, and those who speak out against what are it's almost like a religious kind of thing. I don't know how to best describe it, but it's really in a way an ultimate perversion of science, where a belief system is substituted for science, and those who challenge the belief system are summarily taken out one way or another.
But I think if you would really look at the local community, within the CSRA, particularly Aiken, that's not our image at all. Probably I think you'd find that most of the citizens and the leaders of our communities would look at us as being a very valuable asset, and absolutely just think that the job we do out here is magnificent.
The safety, the security of our community, the cleanup of the environment is critically important to what we're trying to do. I think that helps us prepare for the future and get maybe more jobs out there. Will it all go away? Probably not. We understand that. But there is still some reason for us to believe and hope that some of that should be stored someplace else.
Because the site is attractive to fishermen and hunters, it consistently has problems with individuals trespassing. Some are just there to hunt or fish, and many are unaware that they have crossed over onto a nuclear site. Though hunting on a nuclear site where most of the animals have been found to be radioactive may seem like a very bad idea, the Savannah River Site actually encourages it. Because of the overpopulation of deer on the property, the site opens its doors to hunters on Wednesdays and Saturdays, starting in October and lasting through December. These hunters are allowed onto the site with their weapons and dog packs, driven to the various hunting posts, allowed to hunt to 3 to 4 hours, and then are picked up and transported back out of the facility. Though the deer control activities have limited the number of animal-to-vehicle crashes on the site, they do leave the site vulnerable to individuals with weapons for hours at a time, twice a week in the fall. Terrorists disguised as hunters could easily blend into the crowd and disappear in the 3 to 4 hours they are allowed to hunt. Hunters have been lost before by Wackenhut employees, which does not increase faith in SRS security.
Have you had any problems with incursions, like people wanting to hunt or fish on the property?
Yes, we have.
What's that like? Do they even know they're on the property?
Well, in some cases they do, and that's one of the reasons that it's critical that we do have that police capability, because all our law enforcement officers are Class 1 officers, which means they can enforce the laws of South Carolina. And most of them are not, they're not of a criminal nature, but at the same time, they're infringing on private government property, and so that's a concern that we always have.
While protecting SRS is a daunting task, and it is clear that there are many issues with vulnerability and mismanagement, the problem goes much, much deeper. The nuclear materials located at the Savannah River Site are not only dangerous today, but will be dangerous hundreds of years from now. And yet there is no plan for protecting this material in the future.
Once I put it in the ground, I still have to protect it. For how long? Forever.
Whatever is left over, we feel like we've been promised to go someplace, whether that be Yucca or someplace else. And that's been the contention all along, is we're supportive of new missions, we're supportive of reprocessing or whatever they think they can do, pit disassembly, whatever at our site. But by the same token, we know that it all can't be taken care of that way, and it needs to go someplace in a repository that has been designated and studied and prepared for it. 300
years from now, a biological or a radiological symbol probably won't be the nationally recognized symbol that it is now. Also, what materials do I use? Who's going to pay for the guard force to guard this facility and at what level. Just because 300 years from now it will only be half as radiologically dangerous as it is now doesn't mean that I don't have to protect it. What methodologies are in place for doing that? What long-term plans are in place for doing that? That's part of the problem that DOE's been facing all along. The answer is, outside of probably about 50 years, none.
This is a typical example of a government program that's run amok.
Dr. Lyman is also very concerned about the younger generation's reaction to nuclear sites. This is not just an issue we can deal with today. The nuclear sites are going to be radioactive for thousands of years, and there is no plan to deal with it hundreds of years from now.
Unfortunately, in the United States especially, and in the world in general, we're always reacting instead of being proactive, especially with security. And that comes back to what we talked about earlier, is without the intelligence and without getting the intelligence to the people that can actually provide security, you can't protect everything all the time.
What about counterintelligence on the site? Now, Wackenhut's famous for having some capabilities.
We have no capability.
You have no capability?
No.
Wackenhut has been in charge of SRS security since 1983. The contract has just been renewed in March 2012. Wackenhut was in charge of security during multiple embarrassing security lapses on the Savannah River Site. In early July 2012, 2 young men ran from police after local authorities claimed they committed armed robbery. To escape, they entered the Savannah River Site and successfully made it more than 10 miles into the site before they were arrested by local law enforcement. How did an 18 and 21-year-old make it past Wackenhut security to get so far into the site? Jim Gusti, a spokesperson for the Department of Energy, said that officials will review the events of the evening for lessons learned. But overall, the consensus is the security response was handled as it has been designed, adding that officials are pleased with the quick response. It seems as though entering a nuclear site in any way is a breach of security that should be thoroughly investigated by the officials. But Wackenhut seems content with local law enforcement, and short of that, unleashing a terrorist act that would dwarf 9/11 in lasting damage by attacking SRS facilities and unleashing a radioactive Armageddon. This is the K Materials Storage Facility. From around the world, U.S. surplus nuclear warhead pits have been returning to SRS by the ton. The exact amount stored is classified, but is believed to be more than 30 tons. That is enough to make hundreds of nuclear weapons. This storage facility is located uncomfortably close to a major public highway cutting through the Savannah River Site. This is the Department of Energy's Savannah River Site. It may be the most dangerous place in the United States. Massive amounts of weapons-grade nuclear materials are stored here. The Savannah River Site houses some of the world's nuclear waste, including massive amounts of weapons-grade plutonium. However, recent security breaches and embarrassment have caused some to question whether or not this site is capable of housing such dangerous substances. Aiken, South Carolina is a charming southern town known for its fine homes and security. G4S is a firm with a long history of dubious performance. The most recent scandal involved not providing enough guards for the London Olympics, forcing the British government to call in the army at the last minute. But before that, G4S had the contract for airport security on 9/11 at U.S. airports, where al-Qaeda hijackers successfully boarded planes. That performance prompted the complete federal takeover of U.S. aviation security. The curious relationship between National Nuclear Security Administration and Wackenhut has many critics wondering why DOE and thoroughbred horses. It's hard to imagine that just 18 miles away is one of the most dangerous sites on Earth. The Savannah River Site was once the center of Cold War H-bomb production. Today, SRS is the de facto storage site for tens of millions of gallons of highly radioactive waste and enough weapons-grade plutonium to destroy the world several times over. SRS is a security nightmare. A terrorist that successfully breaches SRS's 310 square mile facility could be rewarded with the holy grail of al-Qaeda, a chance at securing weapons-grade material. An unused cooling tower for the old reactor the weapons-grade plutonium is stored was imploded. The state highway was shut down. While security for such hazardous materials should be a top priority weapons facility, the Department of Energy has trusted the guarding of SRS not to the professional nuclear guards of the U.S. Army and Marines, but to a private security company owned by a foreign corporation. The contractor Wackenhut Security is owned by G4S